weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I were an aspiring writer with one simple problem. We never actually took the time to sit down and write.
Exactly. So to solve that issue, we are issuing a challenge. Each week you sit down for 30 minutes and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read a story, we talk about what we learned in reading it, and then we talk about the rest of the story sent in by you wonderful listeners.
Mm-hmm. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A doof media production. Happy post-Halloween! It's post-Halloween. How was your Halloween, Jarvis?
My Halloween was pretty decently. Went to a couple of parties, had a good time. It was same old. Was quite tips, quite drunk, wafting here and there down hollowed hallways. It was a great time.
Yeah, it's a good time.
But how was yours? I don't know if you ever told me. Well, I think you told me that you went to a Halloween party.
I showed you the costume, right?
Yes.
I posted
the pirates.
Yes, I did a pirate costume. I know, it was very cool and sexy, and I I thrifted the whole outfit, which I thought was really cool.
Which is admirable.
Thank you. I was very proud of it. I got the coat literally a year ago. It was the first most, I don't know, interesting piece of clothing that I got. I started thrifting, I went to a Goodwill boutique, which are great, by the way. They do only have women's clothes, which I did not know going in, which I felt conspicuous last year. Now I don't. Because I was just beginning to explore gender stuff. And I still definitely very much identified as a cis guy. And so I was browsing and I saw this coat and I was like, holy shit, this is the non-binary energy off of this is too powerful. And so I bought it. That's the reason I bought it. And I was like, is this sort of appropriating in some way? I felt like yes, but I felt like I could not turn up the opportunity. It's this golden grandma coat. It looks like a glorious pirate coat. It's fantastic. Anyway.
Yeah, it to me it looks like something that Calypso would maybe put on.
Thank you. I think so too. It's the sort of thing that you loot off of
a dead body, yes.
Off of a rich person's yacht, like pirate yacht. I mean, okay, yeah. I meant a 17th century
yacht.
That's what I meant. But yeah, no, I had a good time. I did go to some a party or two as well, and that was cool. I mean, it was the first time that I'd gone out all femme and stuff, and
big femme.
No one was weird about it. I don't know if I passed or whatever, which is I wasn't really thinking about that. But I mean, Denton's got tons of cool queer people, so especially the second party I went to was full of hot queer people in really good costumes. It was great. I want every party to be like that always. I haven't gone to many parties parties before. I've gone to a couple house shows. That's about it, really. Okay. So this was one of my first just normal parties, which was cool. Definitely a little awkward at the beginning, but you get a couple drinks in and then it's okay.
Oh yeah, and then you just stop caring about everything.
Yeah. I'll just join in the random conversation. That's fine.
If you were to move to Austin, we could go to every single last queer party, especially on 6th, Rain. Rain is a fantastic spot.
That is tempting, Jarvis. I will come and visit, and I will join you for sure. But I will also be doing the same thing in New York, so
But what's better, Austin or dirty, dingy, smelly New York?
I'm going to say New York, I think, but it would depend. It also would depend on the neighborhood I end up in and how far it would be to get home. That would also be significant factors.
Walking distance, yeah.
Also, I'm wondering how parties go when people all have tiny ass apartments.
See, that's the thing. I couldn't even imagine walking into a party that's in a 1-bedroom
fucking studio.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess people go to bars a lot more, and clubs and stuff, so I don't know. It's probably like house shows probably don't happen as much as in Denton, where everyone, like half of everyone, like lives in a rundown house with a good like
living room
100
area.
feet between you and the next house, so you actually can blast and it's fine. Anyway, okay, all right, that's enough. We can get into the proper show now. Sorry about that, y'all.
We have a podcast here.
Yeah, we also
read stories.
Y'all didn't hear it, but we did go off on a 30-minute tangent about the ethics of scamming. So if you want to hear that, that'll be released as a Doof After Dark. So if you go on the Patreon, that is something, I think at the $10 level, I think it might be a different level. You should go look at it. It's a good time. And there's a bunch of other Doof After Darks. So yeah, it's a fun little discussion. But okay, let's do the podcast thing.
Exactly. We will be reading a great piece by MattSaidWords. It's in the same storyline of this Travis guy who has hearing issues, and this one is part 6, named "The Passenger, the Man, and the Girl in the Salmon Sundress."
Yeah, so we did read the first one in the series, and that was a short time ago, but we felt that this is the culmination, that it would be a good one to read on the podcast. So, and it's clear that MattSaidWords put a lot of effort into this.
So yeah, can't wait to hear this culmination.
Just to refresh, this is a series with the hard of hearing man that is in a snowed out hotel. He can't get to his wife who just had a miscarriage, and he went into a rage because of his Tinkerbell syndrome, where he kind of can't control how angry he gets. And he was also told how there is a room in the hotel that is haunted, and that people wake up the night after with bleeding ears, dead. But he might be fine because he's hard of hearing. He's also met a ghost hunter who wants to write a ghost hunting book named Scott. And I think that's all the background we need. They have just gone to bed. So disclaimer before I read this, for some pretty graphic violence and a suicide, among other things. So if that kind of content would make you feel very uncomfortable, also some violence with children involved. I'm kind of spoiling a little bit, but yeah. Travis is seated before a hospital bed. His wife holds her cell phone to her ear, her head hanging and almost resting on her deflated chest. "Hey," Liz says. "Hey, honey, is everything okay?" I had a miscarriage again." Travis stands from his chair and walks to her bedside. He reaches forward to grasp her hand. When he touches it, however, he feels nothing. Instead, his fingers pass through her palm and cheats, like his hands were so much smoke and air. "Are you on your way to the hospital?" "No," Travis hears himself say, like he was observing their interaction rather than participating. "My flight was cancelled." "You mean you're still in Vermont?" "Yes, Liz, I'm in fucking Vermont!" Travis shouts, voice harsh and penetrating. "Shut up, you idiot," Travis thinks. "I'm still in fucking Vermont," he repeats. But this time, he is standing over Liz, hands around her throat. This time he feels their soft purchase in her smooth skin. He feels the muscles running along her neck and the fragile ridges of her trachea pressing into his palm. His hands constrict, cutting off her airways. She doesn't seem to notice, however, and tears leak from her eyes. Travis hears a ringing in his mind and redoubles his grip. He shouts something at her, then, but all he hears is a high, screaming, "Eee!" Travis awoke from his dream in room 313 to a rending, all-consuming pain in his head. His hearing aid pierced through his thoughts like a lightning bolt, endlessly cracking the sky. He writhed and felt that he was screaming but could hear nothing besides the pain. "Oh God, please don't let me die like this," Travis thought. "It's too much. It's too much. It's..." "Mind your mind," Travis heard from somewhere and remembered. He blindly fumbled for his hearing aid and removed it from the post in his head with a click. The wailing ceased, and the cursed silence greeted him. Travis could feel the small black box buzzing like a locust in his hand, and suddenly realized that he was having trouble breathing. The air in the room vibrated violently, forcing air from his chest in low, rattling pulses. "Scott," Travis thought. "Where is Scott? Where's Scott?" The thought came to him in a panic, and Travis opened his eyes and saw... Room 313 shimmered, or maybe it rattled. The air was alive with energy and immense pressure, unseen, but plainly and painfully evident, like a fire observed through the sharp, clean facets of a diamond, reflected and refracted in some otherworldly kaleidoscope. Travis's entire body ached, and when he moved to his feet, he realized that traversing through the room would be impossible. The air pushed back and resisted, like walking through tidal waves. "Scott!" Travis shouted, but heard nothing. The extremely low roaring sound blotted out all others. "Mind your mind." Travis heard this with a clarity he knew must be his mind's ear, something he'd acquired over the years after losing his hearing as a child. It was how he'd had conversations before receiving his first hearing aid. It was how he heard the things others took for granted. It was how he heard them. "Look, Daddy," a little girl said to Travis, the words sounding strange, off somehow. She was wearing a salmon-colored sundress with pink daisies dotting the hemline. She smiled up at him, and Travis's breath caught. This was his daughter, his and Liz's first baby girl. They'd lost her 5 years ago. But here she stood, smiling at him. Like his dream, though, he rode passenger here, bound to do no more than watch and listen. "Hey, put that down. You know better," Travis said. She held the hairdryer from the small bathroom, the kind that fastens to the wall in a plastic cradle. She was pointing it at Travis like you might aim a gun, and smiling. She made no move to indicate she'd heard him. "Put it back!" Travis shouted, the anger in him rising at her unwillingness to behave, to listen to him. The girl turned and walked out of the bathroom, clutching the little hairdryer before her at arm's length and making little mumbling sounds. "What did I just say?" Travis fumed and stomped to intercept the child. He recognized this feeling. It was, at least by his own parlance, Tinkerbell syndrome. He continued his plodding course to the girl. She saw him approaching, and her smile widened like she had lured him into playing with her after all. All Travis wanted, the passenger, at least, was to stoop down beside her and play, to have his baby girl in his arms and just play. He instead grabbed the hairdryer to take it from her and felt its humming, buzzing fan whirring in his hand. "Scott!" Travis shouted into the room, or at least tried. He felt his eyes vibrating in his head, like his eyelashes fluttering like caught in a gale. "Mind your mind," a voice in his head persisted. In his hand, he felt the incessant, violent buzzing of his hearing aid, and, without warning, the black box burst, sending a hot, scorching pain through his fisted hand. He screamed and felt his voice work in his throat, but no sound escaped. He managed to relax the muscles in his hand long enough to let the remains of the hearing aid fall away to the floor. The air pushed against him, and he became the passenger again. He'd finally managed to wrangle the hairdryer free from the girl's hands and placed it back in its cradle. He went back to his bed and had just laid down when he noticed the girl rummaging through his suitcase. Clothes flew out alongside her giddy, awkward giggles. They sounded off somehow, but Travis couldn't place why. The sight of his clothes sailing around the room reminded him of a scene from The Great Gatsby, and he thought it kind of funny. At least, Travis, the passenger, thought so. The other man, the driver, felt a deep fear at something in the suitcase and ran to the girl. "God damn it!" Travis heard himself say, an all too familiar rage firing in his belly. The room went red, and Travis seized the girl, no more than 5 years old, by the wrist and dragging her from the suitcase. She slapped at his hand and was still giggling those awkward little giggles, like they were just playing, albeit a little rough. Travis leaned down and shouted in her face, "I am not playing!" But the words might as well have been Russian for all the good they did. This girl was like a wild animal, untamed and incapable of understanding. He released her and went to put his belongings back in the case. She then climbed up on one of the beds and immediately leaped from it and onto Travis's back, knocking him forward and puffing the breath from his chest. She clung to him with surprising strength, her arms wrapping around his neck and starting to choke him. The anger that compelled him before now consumed him, filled him from nose to navel to toes with gasoline, and he burned. Oh, how he burned. Travis blinked, and room 313 came back into focus. It was like looking through a window at night. He could see his own reflection, but also glimpsed a dim landscape beyond it. The light from Scott's MacBook glowed somewhere in the room, but it might as well have been on the moon. "Stop!" Travis shouted at the girl. "Just fucking stop!" She still clung to him by the neck. He reached back with each hand, grasped her arms near her shoulders, and flung with all his strength, aided by his burning rage. The girl, no more than 40 pounds, flew first over his head, then landed in a heap near the door to room 313. She turned and faced him, shock marking her face. She then looked down, realizing her arm was bent in a way no arm should bend, and saw a bone protruding from the forearm like some maligned tooth. Her mouth opened, inhaled, and the darkened room swam back into a painful focus, and Travis found the lightning bolt in his head had returned and at double the wattage. He found himself grasping for a hearing aid that wasn't there, desperately fumbling with a small rod implanted in his skull, fingers slipping over and around it, a lightning rod, drawing in pain. The air in his chest rumbled and threatened to tear him apart. But then, that other world, that other room, this room somehow, slipped back, and he rode passenger again. It's Tinkerbell syndrome, Travis desperately thought. But it made no difference. The anger burned and raged. He saw her arm, the bone, that malign tooth protruding through the skin, blood seeping out and pooling in the girl's lap, and felt no sympathy, no remorse, only blind willpower. He was fire and she was tinder. No! Travis, the passenger, thought with all his beleaguered willpower. Not tinder. Tender! She's tender and precious. But he was too late. Travis, powerless here, watched as he stamped over to her still screaming and crumpled form on the floor. He reached down to put his hand over her mouth and she bit down. He felt a sharp pain alight in his right hand. Her screaming never stopped. He then reached down and put his left hand on her small, puffing chest and pressed down, trying to pin her. She bucked and gnashed and screamed, her face beginning to pale. He added his now bleeding right hand to his left and leaned into her, pressing down with all his weight, his teeth bared in a snarl. Then he parted them and let out a roar of purest rage, willing his dominance over this child. Then, suddenly, and with a small final crack, her wailing ceased as his hands sunk into her chest. Travis stepped back, waiting for her to start screaming again, but she just laid there, still, for the first time, all night. Finally, Travis thought, and waited for her pitiful whimpers. He knew they would come. He knew it. "Okay," Travis said. "Get up and we'll get your arm taken care of." When she didn't stir, he shouted, "Get up!" But she didn't move, just laid there, bleeding from her arm. "Come on, get up!" he pleaded with her. He could hear his heart racing and picking up pace with each second she didn't stir. The rage in him dulled and lessened with each breath she didn't take. "No, no, 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 no! Don't you dare! Don't you fucking dare!" He shouted at her as he rushed to her and picked up her head in his hands, yelling in her face so she could see. "Wake up! Wake up!" But her head just lolled in his hands, her eyes terrified, her mouth still locked in a scream. The rage was gone now, replaced by nothing. Nothing at all. A bottomless blackness, a vast void of cold emptiness. He was falling into it, being swallowed by it. Travis stood and stumbled back from the body of the little girl, the body of his girl. He looked around and spotted his suitcase, most of its contents scattered about the room. He reached in, pulled the revolver he'd stashed inside a glove, cocked the hammer, and fired into his temple. Travis opened his eyes and the room was still again. He breathed in gasps, relishing the calm air slipping smoothly into his lungs. He drank the still air greedily. The sensation was bliss, the result calming, with the spots in his vision fading. So he wasn't completely surprised when he blinked, and tears fell from his eyes. He got to his feet and immediately found Scott, lying on his bed, his phone at his side and completely still. Travis flew to him and pulled his head to face him. Scott's eyes were open, but unseeing. His hands clasped about his ears and blood trickling down the sides of his face and neck. He'd had a cigarette tucked behind his ear. Now it lay on the pillow beside him, drops of blood marring the white paper. "Scott!" Travis yelled, glad to hear his own voice in his head again, but Scott didn't hear him. Travis cocked his arm back. An open hand slapped the man's face. He didn't move. "Scott, please," Travis pleaded with the bearded man, but no reply came. He leaned down and held him, rocking back and forth, tears flowing again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Travis apologized to his new friend. He liked this man, appreciated his candor, his honesty, and willingness to help him, a perfect stranger in a blizzard. Travis heard something then and whirled around, but nothing was there. It sounded like a little girl's voice, awkward and not quite right. "I'm sorry too, Daddy," Travis heard, and it clicked. The little girl in the other room, that other life, was deaf, like him. I failed, he thought. I wasn't enough. I couldn't stop him. Travis hung his head then and wept. He wept for his new friend, for the little girl in the salmon sundress with daisies dotting the hemline. Most of all, however, he cried for himself, and hated himself for it.
Well, all right. I love this entry. This entire story has definitely been leading up to this, and I enjoy how in the beginning we reside in this place to where we do know where we are, but we're not really sure what's happening, but we understand what's happening, if that makes sense.
I mean, I don't think it does, but
well, in the beginning, I knew that this was some sort of haunting, right?
Right.
And along with that, we're getting backstory to Travis, but it's a bit strange how Travis can be going from holding his wife's hand while the child is being born to calling to strangling her. It's so much strangity happening at once, but we understand that this is the haunting. We have that knowledge that Travis does not have within this moment. So the story is grounded in this non-literal place. Us knowing that he's just in this room tripping out because of these ghosts. And I absolutely love the moment that Travis got with his dead daughter, or the girl in the salmon dress, and like exactly how Travis is playing into it, but is also resistant to this girl's pleads. But as soon as Travis sees that this girl is hurt, Travis sort of just snaps out of his disbelief of this moment. And within that moment, we can see Travis trying to be that father. So yeah, this story just has so much complexity, especially when it comes to Travis. And I love how we only get the haunting that Travis is going through, and we never really get much of Scott until the very end, where we see that Scott is dead, right? So this story does a fantastic job of really portraying this haunting, while also showing us a lot more sides to Travis, because we haven't really seen Travis the father. You know, we've seen Travis the husband, we've seen Travis the person, Travis the rage, but never really Travis the father. So I enjoy how we get to see this entirely different aspect of Travis. Mm-hmm. And at the end, it's really leaving me questioning, like, oof, how is Travis going to explain this to the police? You know,
it's not the first time that's happened. So
yes. So the police, so the local police probably know that something's up with that room. I mean, even the person who sold him the room knew it. But yeah, it's just it's a crazy ride throughout, and I love how, even though this is a longer piece, it's such a quick read, which I really do love.
Yeah. There's a lot going on thematically. Something that was occurring to me is that maybe the reason why all of these other people, the people who are able to hear, do die, They experience the same sort of vision thing. But even though Travis does have his own rage issues, he can relate to this girl because of the deafness. Like, all these other people, they die because they are hearing. And he didn't. Maybe that's because he was able to more put himself into that little girl's shoes and be more understanding of her inability to communicate. And maybe other people who have the same sort of thing and experience the evil father ghost aren't able to do that and fall victim to it. So there's a lot going on here. And that's just one small level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And going on the prose level, I really do love the description throughout this, how it is focused a lot on these movements and how they really attach to the dialogue. Mm-hmm. And it really adds this sort of quick pace prose that we see here to creating this sort of very tense, very fever pitch tone of this piece. How we can understand how any sane person would be going insane based off of these visions and these spirits that Travis is interacting with. Mm-hmm. I definitely on the prose level, it perfectly matches what I'm assuming MattSaidWords try to bring across, which is that sense of tension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's pretty emotionally heavy.
Very.
The moment of the murder, and there's multiple moments of horror there. The first one is just the man just getting more pissed off, and just I was also just confusion for a moment that turned into horror. There was all this going on, the girl's acting weird, and then she jumps on his back and says that she's choking him, and I was really confused. I was oh shit, is she actually is she possessed by an evil ghost? And she's about to try to murder the father. And I think that helped because it's that confusion was then so when he yells at her to stop and flings her, it almost I can understand why he had almost a fight or flight response to that if he's getting choked from behind with a surprising strength. But then we immediately, realized, oh shit, he's just... I mean, we realize as it's described, right, this 40-pound girl with all of his strength, both hands, across the room. We know that she's 5 years old. That's yeah, it turns into horror. Holy shit, he's just... that could kill her, right?
Yeah.
And we see that her arm is broken, and it's just that sort of horror of her looking at him as he's done this horrible thing to her. And it doesn't even stop there. That's what makes it so awful. It's I thought that was the horrible thing.
But it keeps going.
Yeah, but I was oh shit, they're ghosts, so it's probably worse. Mm-hmm. The sinking in of the hands in the chest is really awful. It was really uncomfortable and pretty horrible imagery.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to take this little moment here to really commend MattSaidWords of sticking to this story. I think that this ending payoff would have not hit as hard, would have not as been as expected or satisfying if we didn't have those five issues prior, slowly setting up Travis, seeing Travis do a really good thing in the very beginning to that talking to that little girl in the park, and now us coming to realize why Travis wanted to talk to that girl and to just have that little moment. And yeah, I really love how we see Travis when he's in
about
public.
That little girl.
Yeah, and you notice how that perfectly links up.
Yeah,
and I love how we
sure.
get to see Travis in public, Travis in private, and also Travis when he is bouncing off of someone else like Scott. So yeah, I just feel like this entire six section entry just gives us every possible angle to look at Travis.
I mean, I wouldn't say every possible angle, but yes, a good amount. Yeah.
Yes, multiple angles to really look at him, to where we see all of the bad that Travis has done, but we also understand his good heart and the goodness that he has, and he points that towards others. Yeah. So yeah, I just feel that this entry is fully accomplished from beginning to end. We get this great arc. We get to see how Travis does really desire change within his self. And I think that's such a great part. And we get to see how his past actions do still haunt him. How what he could have had still does haunt him. So yeah, I mean, overall, I just honestly loved reading this series. And, you know, Matt said words with a couple of like edits, this can be something really good, something really large. So yeah.
I feel, yeah, there's definitely, some aspects that can be moved around. I felt like Scott was not as developed as I don't know. I mean, obviously there's all these limitations and stuff. So it's just like, if there is going to be a rewrite, some more stuff to him or cutting him out entirely, because I felt that we met him and it was very cool, especially like the like friendship that he offers. But I didn't have enough to like really like, I don't know, other than him being in the room, why Scott dies. Not in the sense of like, what are the mechanics of it? Because obviously it's the ghost, and it just kills anyone else in the room. But like, why does in the writerly sense, like, why choose to have him in the room dying, right? And die.
Which, I mean, honestly, that's why I do feel, you know, like if this issue that we just read was the 7th one, and the 6th issue was completely just about a deeper back and forth between Travis and Scott, where we get a lot more depth when it comes to the intentions as to why Scott is a ghost hunter, and like as to why Scott is specifically here, that would definitely make the impact of his death greater,
and why he might fail this ghostly test, perhaps,
and also why Travis might have you know made it through. I mean, my biggest clue to that is probably just him not being able to really hear, or him having a hearing aid. But yeah, it would have been nice to see the consequences of not being like Travis. Yeah, and just how that works.
Or on the other hand, Scott could know about everyone who is hearing, dies in this room, and then he sleeps in a different room, and then comes in and sees Travis, you know, sobbing over the death of a little girl. Like we already had one tragic death. Like I had enough emotional effect from that. Speaking of, I did want to talk about a comment that MattSaidWords left talking about writing it, which was that they found themselves avoiding even thinking about it until they sat down to write it. And I think that is exactly the sort of thing that we've been talking about for a while, is just like, these are hard, like these awful feelings and images and stuff, like they're the most emotionally affecting. And for that reason, a lot of us, like myself, avoid writing them, avoid confronting them, avoid getting into them, because they're uncomfortable and sad and upsetting. So I think this is a great example of that. And I think MattSaidWords did a great job of diving into that really awful, sickening feeling. Especially because there's those multiple levels of it that we just talked about, the multiple levels of horror and injury of just like, God, he's just going all out on this poor child.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really gruesome, and yeah, it's gruesome and it's graphic, but I do love how it all serves a purpose.
Mm-hmm. I think
it's not gratuitous just to be gratuitous.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think the beginning with Liz, I think, is a good inclusion. I think I wasn't quite. It feels more dreamlike, where it's like, I don't know exactly why he's like choking his wife, except it's just like an echo of what's happening in the ghost version. So it's not so bad. Or it's not like something too. It definitely deserves to be there. Yeah. And I think especially if someone so in the process of editing something like this, right? So you have this whole novella, right? Have all the chapters, have all the characters developed and stuff. I know that MattSaidWords is also going to add an epilogue, but once you have it all written, then you sort of identify all the themes and stuff that you're doing, and then go in there and straighten it all out. And I think that would be one place to do some straightening. Oh, one other thing I did want to mention that I forgot to was I like the foreshadowing that was in this piece within it. There was two particular ones. One was the gun in the suitcase, and the other one is that the little girl is deaf. Both of them were neat little surprises for me. The one, the gun in the suitcase, I think is great because it's like you're pretty much sure of it. It's not something that you need to be actually surprised by, but just forget about it basically for a moment. Mm-hmm. Because it's not set, right? It's just the guy was afraid of the thing in the suitcase, right? Afraid of her finding the thing in the suitcase, and that immediately made me think gun. But it wasn't confirmed, so I just had it in the back of my mind. And then, of course, when he goes and gets it, I'm like, oh, of course. And then with the girl being deaf, it is great because it actually didn't occur to me at all the entire reading, mm-hmm. which is really stupid of me. It seems really obvious actually in retrospect, which is great. That's perfect. It's on one level, obviously there's the thematic resonance of Travis, being deaf, and then there's also the way the haunting works, making people bleed from their ears, which is why Travis is there in the first place. And then there's tons of clues throughout the piece. Every single time that she doesn't obey, it basically says it was because she could not hear. But because the father doesn't say anything to confirm that, doesn't seem to be considering that, doesn't seem to have any empathy at all about it. It just doesn't occur to us.
Within this piece, it's very easy for us to think that, Travis being deaf in the first issue was just a hook to get us in. But I love how this story comes full circle, mm-hmm. and really gives us a complete story, mm-hmm. Within I would say not even you would say maybe 20 something pages of these six issues. Yeah. One last
the last thing I have a note on, only because it really came up while I was reading it. So in the text, right, the high-pitched screaming is written on onomatopoeia, right, in all caps, E, and then when the girl starts screaming because she's been so horribly injured, it starts off with E and then goes into ah, which I think was great, especially just the echo of that, of that's why we've been hearing this high-pitched keening, is because it's a little girl screaming. And it's a great way of having that visual echo. I will say though, I could not I could not perform that in an audio format. Not that it is supposed to be written for us to read on a podcast. That sounds sarcastic. It's not. But I think that is one detriment, is that it you can't actually read a noise like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just in me reading it on the podcast, but also just I mean, I could sort of picture it. I could picture the sound, especially as it went from the E to the Ah. But I do wonder if, like, just a textual, like, that high-pitched keening came back, the same, or the high-pitched keening of the hearing aid came back and shifted into a little girl scream or whatever. Like, I really like the visual of the, like, echo of the onomatopoeia, but I think that is, like, one way that it becomes criticizable, I guess. Critical? Is that how it...
Critical.
I don't know if that's the right word for that.
Yeah, and I mean, personally, I do love all uses of, like, onomatopoeia. I mean, especially within this piece, it comes up quite often. I do feel like, on the same token, within that moment, I understood what was happening, but I'm not entirely sure if the usage of a onomatopoeia within that moment was as effective as it could be. I think it could really stay just if before that there's this sort of preface that the sound of the hearing aid tuning out is coupled at the end with this screen. Yeah. Just to sort of like hone in on exactly what this onomatopoeia sounds like.
Sure. Yeah, and it's also just like I feel like onomatopoeias, like, pretty often, like, don't feel as, like, serious, if that makes sense. Like, because there is something just sort of silly to me of, like, having... I mean, okay, like, I know this is not the same thing, but if someone... if after the guy shoots himself, there's an all caps blam... Like,
blam.
It would be really silly, you know what I mean? And it's not quite the same, that a blam was obviously more silly than E, but, there's sort of a casualness, I guess? I don't know if that's the right word at all, but, like, there's a sense of, like, groundedness and seriousness and, like, I don't know. That I think and onomatopoeias don't have. I mean,
honestly, I think that sort of discrepancy with you does lie in how onomatopoeias are typically being used. Like, I mean, I think my earliest noticing of a onomatopoeia it was in a children's book, really. How it would be coupled with a picture, or it'd be like the gun goes blam, 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 pop, pop, pop. And like, it is a quick shorthand to describe the sound without describing the sound. Right?
Yeah.
So
it's also kind of showing versus telling. Like, it is more showing than telling. So there is that.
So I can, like, understand how someone could see it as maybe even hacky. I think that it has been used within this series very, very well, to where it does carry across that sincerity, which, you know, in, like, other pieces that I've seen it, it definitely sort of breaks you from the story itself, because it is a different form of, I would even say, performance, that's separate from how typical writing is. I just feel like the only time that it was a bit iffy for me would be on that last one, when it does turn into a scream.
Well, yeah, to me it's just because it's the most serious of them all, right? Like, it was just a little girl being injured, and it's about to be a little girl being murdered, right? So, that's just my feelings on it. And if you feel otherwise, MattSaidWords, that's totally valid. And I think the piece, it doesn't, like, suffer very much from it. Like, it still works very, very well. I wasn't even taken out of it because even when I had this feeling about it, it's just something I noticed, especially when I was reading it out loud and could not make myself doing an odd noise. I did my best. But yeah, no, this is a wonderful story. This is a hard-hitting story, confronting some difficult emotions, and I think it's a great end cap to this series.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much to MattSaidWords for not only giving us this entry, but giving us a complete story. We really enjoyed reading through it.
I'm looking forward to that epilogue.
Oh, 100%. Well, all right. It's high time to move on into the listener submitted story section. So thank you very much to Glittering Coast, Darby Jazz, and Sarah Penguin for submitting your story.
All right, let's get started.
So the first one up is by Glittering Coast with The First of Many Terrible Evenings.
So this would have been my second choice to read on the podcast this week. So this is actually, I think, a great example of the narrative voice, the In Their Words prompt for November, where we have this woman who has just been proposed to. She said yes, and she's with her fiance, and he is dragging her out to meet a bunch of people, and the whole way through just hammering into us over and over again is how much it's just like she doesn't really want this at all. She just kind of said yes because he'd been asking for like 6 years, and everyone else around has been asking for 6 years. And we just kind of see over and over of how, like, he doesn't actually really care about her feelings that much, and she just kind of caves to whatever he wants. And yeah, it's a pretty sad feeling. We end with and she's like dissociating during conversations with these random people at this golf club. And we end here with another thing of just like, wow, over the course of 7 years, he's never understood that she doesn't actually care about the garden of this place. She just said that she liked it one time, and he's never actually listened. And they go for a walk, and we end with this thought of, I put on a mask of happiness and vowed to never take it off again, which is just bad. It's really bad. Especially, it felt very relatable. I had been in a relationship where I was kind of accepting everything and saying that because I agreed to it, I need to be okay with it. I need to work to be okay with it. And it doesn't work.
Never.
Yeah. And it's also like it's complicated because it's a little bit on both ends, a little bit of just like this guy is really, really bad, right? He is emotionally manipulative, he doesn't listen, and all these things, but also like she's not fully honest either, right? She says that she's okay with it. She like the stuff with the gardens, right? She doesn't just say, I don't like the gardens, right? I don't care about the gardens. She just goes, you like them more than me. Which is just like, the signaling isn't working. You gotta be brave and just be rude, you know? And it's sort of a tragedy of that, of just like someone's inability to confront something that they need to confront.
Yeah, no, this is a very, I want to say sad story, but you know, it's not like deep depression. This is very begrudging, and I love how this story itself really establishes this person's disdain for this country club, for this, for all the people there, for all the conversations they like have to have, and it's very relatable to every time that I've ever been to a country club, really. And I really do love us being able to understand this sort of push and pull, how they're here for him, and that there is a certain amount of love there, but it's still like the relationship itself isn't what this person seemed to have signed up for.
Yeah.
And how something that probably started off so great has slowly turned into this thing that this person would rather not be a part of, but they feel stuck because they're so deep into it. So yeah, this story really does play with the complexities of a longer, drawn out relationship, and how things can just fizzle out, or how things change over time, and how that change is fine, but we do put it upon ourselves to try and change with that change, even though it is leading towards a end that we're not going to be completely comfortable with.
Yeah, especially if we have the problem that this character has of being completely unable of having a confrontation, right? Like there's this line that he's not the type of man who doesn't get his way, right? And that's just like a kind of giving in, you know. You gotta be like, if that's the case, then don't be with this man, right? Another thing is, like, she wants to have dinner, but he wants to go to these gardens to do all these other things, and she just say, no, I'm hungry, I want to go have dinner right now. Like, and it's just this sort of sort of like a tragedy of someone letting themselves be drawn into this relationship pattern. Like, he's not even like that bad of a guy, right? He's just, he knows how to play her, and she isn't able to say no, basically.
Yeah. So a very personal tragedy.
Yeah.
But thank you very much to Glittering Coast. And up next is by Jarby Jazz with Sometimes You Need to Fillet a Fish,
which is a fun title. So this is the ongoing series with Eloise and the Fleshcrafters. In this one, we're in that other character's perspective, who we realize is a assassin. And he is with this sort of otherworldly fancy creature that is clearly like horrible in some ways, but also enchanting, like Lovecraftian maybe in a little bit, as he's an assassin, but he's been hired to just fillet a fish and do some chef work, I guess, just to show his knife skills. And that's we just have some interesting like banter and character insight on this man thing and our assassin right here. And he accepts this job that he has to go kill a wealthy investor and kill his family, which includes children and the man's wife, and make it look like it's one of his rivals. And he doesn't balk at all at it. He just says, I charge per head, which I thought was a funny play on words, of just like, no one really uses that phrase to refer to murdering people, and just the callousness of that.
Yeah. So I love how these supplementary stories just really does fill out this world. It seems like a really great world to play in. And I love how serious this assassin character really is. How they are really focused on the job. Definitely feeling that trope, but it's used pretty well here. This story seems to just be setting up this mission of just wiping this entire family, no matter how horrible that is. So it was a really good read. I enjoyed it greatly.
Yeah, definitely.
So our last one for this week is by Sarah Penguin with A Bite, Leech Goddess Series Part 3.
So we have our two characters here, Fatima and Ileana, inside of this temple that's just been set alight. Fatima says that she wants to leave. Ileana says, trust the goddess. And she's able to pull together a portal to the goddess's realm. So they pass through, and it was Fratima with a R. I'm not sure if that was always like that, and I was always misreading it or not, but my bad. But they go into this void where this leech goddess lives, and this leech appears onto Ileana's neck, and suddenly she's like possessed, which I thought was a really cool mechanic of how that works. But she's possessed by the goddess, who then it talks to Fatima. There's like a little bit of like kinky "you are mine" stuff with the goddess biting Fatima's lip, and there's definitely some good stuff going on in there with like this subversion of you worried about what bloodline you actually are from. It doesn't matter because you're mine. Your bloodline's now mine. And definitely I get why Fatima's cheeks felt like they were on fire at the end of that. But then they basically get their assignment for their next job.
Yeah. So this was a really great entry. Just going even further in depth to these characters, I do like. I don't know if this was just my reading, but subtle manipulation,
a little bit
mixed with a bit of flirt. I enjoy how the depth of these characters is being really, really worked on, and I'm excited to see what this next mission is, see how the status quo of this current story will be disrupted in the future.
Yeah, I definitely like the characters going on here. Definitely the like interaction between the goddess and Fatima definitely worked on me, and it's great. I will say as in other times to slow down. There's so many points in here where it's just like I wanted to stay in that moment a little longer. I wanted a little bit more of that build up, and to feel more of what's going on there. Like for example, I want to know what Fatima's feelings are toward Ileana being possessed by this goddess, right? Like, is she feeling the same sort of like feelings for the goddess that she has for Ileana? Is it just like passed over? How does that feel? And then of course, like just the whole moment with the kiss and the bite and everything, it's great, and just like more description about feelings and like sensations in addition to like the emotional feelings, I think would be wonderful. Like the stuff that happens here is great. I just want it paced slower, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that it was like speeding along too bad, and like there wasn't that issue of like moving too fast through locations. We are in two locations, but it was totally fine.
You just wanted like a break moment, a moment where the story can really breathe.
It's just like if this was a dance, I want it to be a waltz where like each like step, they sort of pause before they take another step. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And instead of it being like a hip hop dance,
or something like that. Yeah. I don't know enough dances to be able to actually come up with examples.
But you do know the waltz because you were in theater just like me.
Yep.
Well, all right. Before we do our lovely outro, I would like to say thank you to everyone who did leave comments. Leaving comments not only under your own story, but under someone else's story combines all of your own ideas on your story so that other people can see it and comment on that, but also you're providing someone else with feedback that can only improve their writing along with yours. So, thank you very much to Jarby Jazz, Sarah Penguin, MattSaidWords, and Glittering Coast. Thank you so much for leaving comments.
Yeah, y'all did great, and I know that this last week was hard for a number of y'all. So many people are sick. I know Jarby Jazz was sick. I was sick. I still am sick. So if y'all could detect any difference in my voice, or if I forget to cut out any coughs, yeah, that's why I'm sick. And so is Scott, also on Doof Media. So a lot of things are delayed. It's weird. It's not COVID, I don't think. I don't think I have COVID. It doesn't feel like when I did have COVID.
Seasonal sick.
Yeah. Which is it's just surprising so many people at the same time. If you want to be like all these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, all you have to do is go to /r/ do the right thing. Set a timer for 30 minutes and use 3 of the 4 randomly generated words.
Exactly. And if you want to know next week's words as soon as possible, you can do that by following us on Twitter, which is @RightThingCast. That's where we post all of the words for next week. Also, any sort of issues that we're having on our side. If you are following us, you would have known that we had to delay this episode because I had classes
and I was really sick.
Alex, exactly. So please follow us there. Also, if you want to send us a email, you can do that at RightThingCast. Send us anything you really want. Have any questions on your own writing, we can always answer it. So yeah, just contact us any way that you want.
Yeah, there's a ton of other things going on here at Doof Media, of course. If you haven't checked out yet, go check out The High Ground. It's this wonderful podcast where Elliot Rubin and one or both, I'm not sure if the other one of Elliot's sisters has joined, but they watch some very entertaining but bad movies or and talk about them. And a lot of these, this is a bonus content show, but a lot of them have become public. And of course there's all the other shows about the wonderful long-running works like Kingslingers. If you haven't seen What You Say, please do. It's just a fun, pleasant podcast to listen to, pass the time. And there's a lot of other things. I know we haven't done we've been talking about doing a doof-over for a long time and haven't done one in a while. But I think we really will get back into them soon. Because I think you want to do one covering Dave Chappelle's recent controversial comedy special.
Yes.
And I just watched Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I was actually kind of shocked of how good I found it. Like, it might be the best written anime that I've seen so far, and I really enjoyed Cowboy Bebop, and I think it's definitely like the same or better quality. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking about that. I haven't finished it. I'm still, I think 6 episodes and a movie away from being done with it. But it's really, really good. Surprisingly good.
Yeah, and then those are all hits. So please, hopefully within the next month, we should have a couple of doof-overs ready for y'all to listen to. Well, all right. I think it's high time to roll into next week's words.
Hell yeah. Also, just a reminder that the theme for this month is in their words, to write a story using, staying within a character's perspective. So Glittering Coast did a great example of that. And I think all the stories this week, at least had some, hints in and, flavoring, from the characters. For at least one time this week, try to go like fully like all out, write a perspective that is strange, like a child's perspective, someone's like different than you, or maybe like write a normal scene but have it very much colored through some sort of emotion. I think rage is a pretty easy one. Teenage angst makes anything into a really I remember being in high school and being angry at everything. I didn't realize how angry I was until I took HRT and a lot of it went away, but yeah, no, I was just like soaking in rage. I think I was like just going throughout my day and just mentally cursing at everyone that I saw for no reason. It's terrible.
Yeah, and that would be a great story.
Yeah, you could do that. Or go another way and write about another emotion like love or something. I don't know. Just an idea.
Love.
Yes.
Exactly. And the words that will aid you in your character-driven story are enemy, article, cassette, and painter.
So these are some very fun words. So an enemy is an antagonist, someone that is against you, usually the bad guys. Like even beyond just an antagonist being someone that stops you, an enemy is someone that is also bad in some sense. You could also write about frenemies, which are friends that are also enemies at the same time. What else, Travis? Any other sense that you would want to impart?
A enemy of the state.
That's true.
Is someone who has done a heinous crime and is running.
I was trying to think of a song lyric with enemy, but actually the song lyric that came up was Animal I've Become. So that's different. So not that. Anyway, the next word is article, which is a sort of segment of text. So there are news articles, which are a section of the newspaper.
There are articles in our Constitution.
There was before the Constitution, there was the Articles of Confederation, which was back when our 13 colonies was a just collection of allied states, essentially, and that was that was the government of the Revolutionary War before we made the full-on federal U.S. government with the Constitution.
Yes.
And other things. There's also articles of clothing.
Yes.
So any piece of clothing, that's an article. I think that's about it.
Yeah. Cassette?
Cassette is a format of containing music?
Music, yes.
There's
also a video cassette.
Okay. Gotcha. What does VHS stand for? Video Home System?
Maybe.
I
don't know. I never really understood what the acronyms were, because I think.
Oh my god, I was right.
The time that we were growing. Oh, so you were right. Okay.
It's Video Home System. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. They're made for viewing at home, but still, that's strange. I thought it would be more about the mechanics of the format. That's funny.
Yeah. Because when we were growing up, cassettes and VHSs were going out of style.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're so classic. Yeah, I need to get I have 2 VHSs in my room. Do you want to know what they are?
Yeah.
I have the horror movie They from I think 2003. They were still making VHSs then. And I also have God, I don't know the year, but one of those old monster movies with a giant ants, and it's called Them. So I have 2 VHSs, and one
and them
is they, and the other's them. I'm so happy about
it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's the only other one I really need to get is the 1986 Transformers movie, which I will get. It's a matter of time. I did go to Recycled Books, the bookstore in the main square, and they had it there for $50, so I did not buy it.
Ooh.
So
that's so expensive.
Yeah. I really wish I still had the one I had as a kid, because fuck, I want monies.
Yeah, you
actually, it was
could
more
sell
than
that for $60 probably.
Yeah. I wouldn't sell it. I just wouldn't be $50 less than I would be. I probably will just. I don't really care about that much about having the genuine old thing. I might just get the VHS. For example, you know what's funny? The one in the paper sleeve, that one is worth $50. The ones in the plastic sleeve, the clamshell as they're called, the crunchy plastic, those are worth $3. There's nothing. Yeah. So I will
so odd.
I will buy a clamshell, and then I might make my own sleeve,
paper sleeve.
Yeah, because it's got to be aesthetic, right? So
yes,
anyway,
of course.
Anyway, that's cassettes.
Yeah.
And the last one is painter, which is someone that paints. A paint is a liquid that is used to change the color of something. So you have both more commercial painters, which will paint an entire wall one color for a business or residence. And then there's painting as an art, which is usually on a canvas, but can be on any surface.
Yeah. Graffiti.
Are graffiti artists painters?
I mean, they are putting color on a wall.
Do you paint with a spray can?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, you do. Yeah.
For me, it's always I have the image it has to involve a brush.
Does it have to? Because okay,
that's just what it is in my mind. I don't know if
what
that's
about
actually
finger
true.
painting?
Oh, good point. Well, okay, that's the thing. When you say finger painting, you have to clarify that it's with fingers, because if it's without, because the brush is implied. If it was like, it might be called. Maybe it's called spray painting. I don't know.
Spray painting, yes,
because they are.
But
spray
I would
cans.
still call that painting.
If they say spray painting, yes. I don't know if they say spray painting though.
No, normally they just say, "Hey, I want to put my tag on this train."
What is art? Anyway,
that's a deep question.
Yeah, you should answer it in your story right now.
Oh yeah, so my story takes place in Pflugerville High School in the theater department. In a department run by the theater coach, Coach Painter, who typically casts her plays through a set of nepotistic values. Basically, if she likes you, you will get a part. And this is completely fine. There's no article within the school handbook saying that she cannot do this. And this practice has gone all the way back to even when she was in high school, when their plays were filmed onto cassettes, and they were doing old plays like Romeo and Juliet and The Crucible. So this story specifically is in the perspective of a person that Coach Painter does not like, but they have a lot of acting prowess. They are the enemy to the theater department, not because they are antagonistic, but because they believe in true art, in the true art of theater and expression, separate from nepotism.
Wow, I can't wait to hear about the success of this revolution. Thanks, Jarvis.
Yes. What about you, though? What is your 20-word story?
Okay. Painter.
Yes.
Does paint. Is famous. Gets article written. Enemy doesn't like Painter. Sends cassette. Painter listens. It's a mixtape. It's so sad. Painter jumps off building. Enemy rejoices.
Oh.
Article is written about Painter death. Painter more famous than ever. Painter comes back from death. Enemy cries and jumps off a building.
Wow. That was a quick 45 words.
Did you count? Really? All the way through?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Well, I tried my best.
But that was great. That was great. And, I feel that even though a painter might not be loved or liked, it's not right for us to bully them. This podcast is inherently anti-bully. So if there's a local painter that you don't like, you should do the right thing and not prosecute them.
You should tip them, actually.
Yeah. Give them money.
Give us money on our Patreon.